Welcome to Eternal Dread, where fear never sleeps. Tell us where you're watching from, and what time it is, because terror has no limits. If you're brave enough, share and comment, but beware, something might be watching you too. Now, turn off the lights, and let the dread begin. Yeah, you read that right. Maybe you even read my post last year. I was pretty panicked when I wrote it, so it was short, but it was real. It's pretty simple for how crazy it all sounds. Every year on Christmas Eve, for as long as I can remember, my parents drug us with sleeping pills. Something about not being awake when Santa comes. We have a whole schedule the family keeps to. Dinner at 5, at 6 we put on our pajamas and watch that shitty movie It's a Wonderful Life, and yeah, the PJs match. And then at 8:30 we all use our last bit of eggnog to wash down the pills. They're strong. My sister's out in probably 15 minutes. I take a little longer, but I'm always asleep by 9. Then we wake up the next morning, groggy but okay, and Mom gushes about everything Santa left under the tree. Because we're good. It's all bullshit. My whole life I thought this was just what you did on Christmas. You have to be asleep when Santa comes, right? Otherwise his magic doesn't work. So we took magic pills to make sure we'd be asleep. As a kid it all made sense. You don't question shit like that when presents are on the line. Your parents are the law, and you don't question them either. I only started to think that it was weird when I hit middle school. By that age, you don't believe in Santa anymore. Or you shouldn't. The last holdouts get mocked, and the rest of us start talking about things like boxes and sneakers, and how we're gonna get them. Me? I only had one question when the topic of Christmas came up. When did you guys stop taking the magic pills? That's a question that falls under the family business only clause, and I regretted it immediately. If any of them told their parents, I'll never know. In a bigger city with more oversight, someone would've, or should've, called CPS. Out here, population 5108. Yeah, I checked. Bumfuck nowhere left of the oil fields. No one gave a shit that some kid's family was drugging them for some piece on Christmas Eve. The day I asked that question, all my friends howled with laughter while I sat there beat red and trying to play it off as a joke. That was the day I knew it wasn't normal. Last year, I'd finally had enough. I got sick of the lies, sick of the matching pajamas, sick of playing pretend that we were having the perfect family Christmas. I wanted to know why my parents drug us. I had to know why. So when Mom handed me that little white pill, I hid it under my tongue and spat it in the toilet. Then I went to bed and pretended to be asleep. I listened until I heard Mom snoring to get up and look around. I wasn't surprised to see the tree stuffed with gifts already, Santa who. But that was it. I wasn't finding any secrets. Nothing unusual or weird until I saw them. I was reading the credit card statement, so sue me they drugged us, when I saw movement outside. We always have a white Christmas, and by that time the street was dead quiet, so when I saw something rush by the window, it startled me. I just about opened the front door to go look when I saw them. Lots of them, landing on the roofs one by one, and crawling into the chimneys of every house. I don't even know how to properly describe them. Is that what PTSD does? Stops you from remembering things? Because I must have PTSD. I know I have it. I have to have it. I crouched by the couch, hiding behind the curtains and watching these giant red spidery things as they skittered across the rooftops. They'd reach a chimney and one by one hop in the air, tuck their legs into a line beneath them, and shoot down the chimney. They'd be gone for a few minutes and then shoot back out. Mostly with nothing. Sometimes with random items or decorations. For one brief stupid second I thought that they were maybe some fucked up version of Santa's elves until I heard the most god-awful sound. The sound that still haunts my every waking moment. Agonized screams of pure terror. Wailing. Crunching. Grinding. The sound of someone's body being forced up the chimney. Human bodies don't fit in chimneys. Not like that. I watched in horror as the smith's daughter Maggie came up the chimney, pulled by two of those freaks of nature. By the time they pulled her out, she'd stopped screaming. I don't think she was alive by then. I hope she wasn't. Her body wasn't right. It was like a tube of toothpaste that had popped. I sat there in shock, watching the smith's roof turning pink before I felt the gravity of what I'd just seen bury me. Suddenly I knew why my parents drugged us, and I needed to get to sleep fast. I ran straight for the bathroom and poured out 3 of those little white sleeping pills, then dove into my bed. I pulled the covers over my head and started chewing. Have you ever tried to chew pills? They're not supposed to be chewed. They taste like shit. I just about threw up twice. It didn't help that I could hear those things getting closer. You know those movies about Santa and his reindeer? About the bells and the hooves? That's them. There's no reindeer. That horrible clicking comes from them. And I knew what they did to people who weren't sleeping. Waking up Christmas Day was awkward. Everyone else woke up for Christmas morning, and I woke up with my dad shaking me awake past noon. I could tell he wasn't impressed, but me? I was thrilled. The last time I woke up on Christmas that happy I was like 5. After I stopped screaming, that is. It took me a few seconds to realize I wasn't being dragged up our chimney. But once I did, it was great. I threw myself on my dad like we were in a wrestling match. I ran downstairs, hugged my mother harder than I had in years, and then threw my sister over my shoulder. She was 8, still 100% a believer, and had been sour about waiting so long to start Christmas until I tickled her into submission. Happiness is contagious, and for the first time in a while I was thrilled to see a Christmas with my family. It was awesome, until it wasn't. We'd opened stockings and exchanged gifts, and were gorging ourselves on fresh cinnamon buns and eggs Benedict when I made the mistake of glancing outside. By that point I'd sort of convinced myself that I'd just had a crazy dream. I'd snuck off to smoke pot with one of my friends early Christmas Eve, so I figured maybe it had mixed badly with the sleeping pill. But the moment I looked outside, my eyes were drawn to the Smith's house, and that pink patch on top. Suddenly I couldn't swallow, and I drank a whole glass of milk, just trying to choke down my food. It hadn't been a dream. So where were the cops? Sure, I'd gotten up late, but a kid goes missing on Christmas Eve. You'd assume that the police would be crawling the neighborhood all day. You look a little green, bud, you okay? I'd been staring out the window, feeling the pit in my stomach grow heavier and heavier when my dad jolted me to reality. I looked at him and nodded, trying to take another bite for show. Hey, have you seen the Smiths? I asked suddenly, wondering if maybe they just hadn't wanted to spoil the mood. I watched my parents take a sharp but quick glance at each other before he shook his head and smiled. Not yet. I'll let you know if I see Maggie outside, though, he teased with a wink, grabbing my shoulder and giving it a squeeze as he left the table. Mom gave me a kind smile and poured me another glass of milk. I probably sat there for another hour before I finally gave up and went to help my sister set up her new doll house. I needed the distraction. When winter break ended, I was back at school, expecting to see an uproar that never came. Freshman year of high school, a kid had gotten into a car accident, and the entire student body held a vigil for him. There was a memorial in the auditorium, meetings after school to light candles, and the school even brought in a couple therapists. Nobody said or did anything like that for Maggie. It was like everybody just kind of forgot that she existed, and it was strange. Hell, even the local newspaper seemed to skip it, and they had absolutely nothing to report on most days. It took until mid-January before I spotted a tiny obituary tucked in the corner of a back page. I saved it, stuffing it in a notebook at home for safekeeping. It almost felt like if I didn't remember she'd died, no one would. Honestly, the whole incident took a toll. March came and went, and so did my birthday. I was 17 now, supposed to be focusing on planning for college, but all I could think about was Christmas. I could barely sleep. Every night I'd go to bed and lay there staring at the ceiling, jumping at every little snap or crack. Every morning I'd wake up with darker bags under my eyes than the day before. I couldn't focus in school. My grades dropped. My parents started asking about drugs. By the end of October, I'd had no less than 8 visits with the student counselor, who kept gently asking me if things were okay at home. What could I say? No, Ms. Andrews, I saw Christmas spiders pull a girl out of a chimney, and it makes it hard to do math. Right. I couldn't tell anyone. How do you talk about shit like this? I sounded crazy in middle school when I tried to ask my friends about being drugged on Christmas Eve. I'd definitely get locked up if I talked about giant red spiders taking people in the night. But I was losing my mind. We'd had Thanksgiving. Halloween was coming, and the colder it got, the more anxious I got. The stores were already running clearance on costumes and jack-o'-lanterns to make room for ornaments. The first signs of Christmas were already seeping in, and I was absolutely, without a doubt, terrified for my life. That's when my friends called me to hang out. It might sound stupid, but my friends and I have a code we use when things are bad and we need to talk. We'd definitely drifted apart in high school. None of us really hung out that much together anymore, but none of us had ever backed out when someone said they needed to smoke. I was exhausted, but I figured the worst I'd get was some weed out of it. Besides, when the bat signal goes up, you gotta answer it. Roll it right or don't roll it at all, man, Ella complained, watching Greg scowl while trying to ready a joint. We were huddled in the woods behind the school, freezing our asses off in the early cold snap. Max groaned and snatched everything away from him, making quick work of it and then lighting up. Christ, finally. Okay. He breathed out smoke with a sigh before passing the joint to the left. So, it's been one hell of a year, right? Max was always the type for speeches. I sat there shivering and waiting for my share, staring at the ground. We haven't had much time to hang out. And even though I've been busy, you guys are still my best friends. Even one day when I go off to Hollywood and become famous, I will always love all of you. There were groans all around, and Max waved us off, coughing a little and laughing. So that love is why I called us together. I think we all know why we're here. Hayden, he paused as Ella finally passed me the joint. This is like an intervention. I didn't even get to smoke before I choked and coughed from surprise. We're really worried about you, Ella added gently, putting a hand on my arm. Don't be, I mumbled, taking a drag. I glanced back at the school. I'd been fired from my job, so my car wasn't insured. I'd gotten a ride there with Max. If I wanted to leave, I'd have to walk home, and it was too cold for that. Come on, talk to us, bro. You've just disappeared. We never see you. We're worried. Don't be. People think you're gonna shoot up the school. God, I thought we agreed not to tell him that. Ella squeaked, covering her face as Greg just shrugged. Someone has to. You guys suck. I stood up to leave. I was already stressed and running on no sleep. Now I was fucking embarrassed too. People thought I was going to shoot up the school. Did my friends think that? I didn't even like killing bugs. Stop. Just stop. Max grabbed my arm and pulled me back down, passing me the joint. Just relax. Come on, we're your friends. When Ella's parents divorced, what did we do? We smoked and talked. Greg's dog died, we smoked and talked. You're not the Hayden we know. So talk to us. I sat on the stump, fidgeting and staring at the ground until I was high enough to be brave enough to try and tell them the truth. What did I have to lose? They thought I was crazy anyways. You guys remember in middle school when I talked about magic pills? The Santa pills? She asked slowly, squinting at me. I mean, yeah, I guess. What about it? They weren't magic pills, they were sleeping pills. Ever since I can remember, my parents have drugged me and my sister on Christmas Eve. I thought it was normal. They told me they were magic pills to make sure we were all asleep, so that Santa... I stopped and groaned, rubbing my face and trying not to wuss out. So that Santa would come. Because he doesn't come when you're awake. I saw Greg clamp a hand over his mouth, his shoulders shaking. Ella shot him a dirty look and elbowed him hard, then smiled at me. Fuck, this is stupid. Never mind. No, it's not. Keep going. Come on, we want to hear. I took a deep breath in and closed my eyes. I hated closing my eyes. If I closed my eyes and thought about it, I could see it all happening again. I could hear Maggie's screams again. Last year, I didn't take mine. I wanted to see what happens, what they're hiding. And I saw these things. They climb all over the houses, they go down people's chimneys, and they take people who aren't sleeping. You guys remember Maggie? That's how she died. I saw them take her. I heard her screams. It's all I can think about. I didn't realize it, but by the end of the story I was crying. A dam had broken somewhere inside me. I scrubbed my tears away with my sleeve. I could see Greg had stopped laughing, but I couldn't look at any of their faces. I was too embarrassed. I sounded nuts. All I could do was examine the bucket we'd flipped over to use as a table. It was old, from Rona, beat up. It was cracked. They never found her body, Max said with a strained voice. I know Maggie's brother. Not well, but we talked. He said they were all sleeping. No one heard anything. They never found the body. They moved in the summer. What? How'd I miss that? I spent way more time than I should have staring at their house. I should have noticed. Yeah, in August. He'd met me and said they were moving, and that was it. We all sat there in shocked silence for a little bit until Ella piped up. So how do you know your parents drugged you? She asked with a frown. Like those magic pills could be candy or something, and it's just that placebo effect thing happening to you. I saw the prescription bottle. Besides, you feel weird the next day. Feel weird how? Fuzzy. We all turned to Greg. He'd largely been silent, but now he looked nervous, passing the joint without taking a puff. We were all done actually, silently but unanimously voting to put it out. You wake up groggy. You know when you get woken up in the middle of the night? Like that, only it's morning. And you just sleep through the night. I've never woken up on Christmas Eve. Ever. The more I talked, the more both he and Ella looked alarmed. Do your parents drug you too? No. Ella barked, almost sounding offended. No. I mean, I don't think so. Grandma makes us this tea, though, every Christmas Eve. It's supposed to calm us down, so we sleep well. As she described it, she scrunched her face up and tugged on her ponytail. Fuck. They're drugging us too. Greg looked downright sick. He didn't say it, but from the look on his face, he'd been sleeping way too well on Christmas Eve too. I take Ambien, so they don't really need to, Max said with a shrug. By now Ella was pacing. Okay, so they're drugging us. But why? I mean, listen, I believe you saw what you saw, but couldn't it have been a hallucination? Why isn't this widespread news? You mean news like Maggie disappearing? I asked. I live right across the street, and the cops didn't even show up. No one cared that Maggie died. No one talked about it. No wonder they moved. We all just pretended like she didn't exist. The shamed silence that followed stretched on until Greg's phone buzzed, and he announced that he had to go to work. Ella did too. They both worked at the same fast food place. They gave us a half-hearted goodbye. I was exhausted, completely emotionally drained after spilling my guts, and Max offered to drive me home soon after the others left. It was a silent ride. He seemed deep in thought, and I was so tired I didn't even want to try and talk. It didn't matter. I'd told them. They could think I was crazy all they wanted. I found money on the counter for pizza at home, and put in a Domino's order before finding something to watch. The entire time I sat there, all I could think about was Maggie, and how she'd just disappeared from our little town the moment she was snatched. It was like those things had just wiped her off the map, and everyone let it happen. I remembered the obituary halfway through dinner, and ran upstairs to dig out the notebook I'd put it in. It wasn't long, that's for sure. Her family had barely put in any description in at all. Like all obituaries, they had put down the date of her death, and that gave me a sudden idea. I started searching. Our town was small and rural, but we did have a newspaper, and it had managed to get a grant a few years ago to make a website and start digitizing everything. That meant that they had decades worth of obituaries to look through. I started to search for any deaths around Christmas. Deaths in December weren't unusual, even in a small town. Between icy roads causing grandma to fall or depression taking lives, death was expected at Christmas. But when I started to dig through my results, I noticed a serious difference between the Nana Eats Shit deaths and the ones that happened right on Christmas itself. They were all short, with few details, and all were published weeks after the event. There were never any funerals or memorial services to be had. No options to send flowers somewhere. It seemed like every year at least one person died under strange circumstances at Christmas and just became invisible. I made a list of the last few deaths and started searching for their families. Just like the Smiths, most of the families had moved away after the death. I scoured social media pages for more clues. No one that had left seemed to keep ties with anyone in our little town. In fact, many of the families hadn't been in the town long before the death had happened. If I thought about the Smiths, they had only moved here a few months before last Christmas. It wasn't uncommon for families to move here for the oil opportunities, make some money, and then leave when they realized there wasn't much to do. It wouldn't have looked unusual if you didn't know that someone had died. I sat back, shoveling in the last couple slices of cold pizza. Why hadn't I looked this up before? I'd spent most of 2022 trying to forget what I'd seen, but being too scared to let it go. All I could think of was Christmas, and what I knew would happen when I was asleep. I'd nearly failed out of school. I'd lost my job. Okay, it was a shitty one, but still. I was this close to losing any opportunities for a good college. But worse than that, I was probably the only person who had seen what comes on Christmas Eve and lived to talk about it. That gave me a responsibility, right? I knew what they looked like and what they did. And now, I knew that this had been going on for years. My parents had been drugging me since I was born, so they must have known about it. They grew up here. They had to know. The Smiths had only been in town for a few months. Maybe nobody warned them. Maybe they just went to bed like normal, never knowing the risks. Shit. Why had no one told them? I pulled out my phone, texting Max. I needed him to hook me up with Maggie's brother. I needed to know what happened after she died. Then I messaged everyone on Facebook in one big group chat. There were some families that had lived here for generations and had still had people die. I had the perfect idea on how to contact them. We were going trick or treating this year. Trying to talk to Maggie's brother had been a waste of time. I wasn't totally shocked, but I was disappointed. I thought he was actually going to talk to me at first. It had been going fine, even after mentioning how crazy it was that no one talked about his sister's death, when suddenly he stopped replying and blocked me. Blocked me on Insta, on Facebook, and when I tried calling his cell, I got that annoying number not in service robot voice. After that happened, I filled my friends in on why we were going trick-or-treating. It wasn't exactly a popular request, but everyone seemed to agree to it out of pure loyalty. Normally, at 17, you went to a party and got drunk. Mostly because people didn't really love handing out candy to teenagers. This year we'd hit the streets. Someone's gonna call the cops on us. My dad will kill me if he finds out about this. Greg looked paranoid like usual. I couldn't blame him. His parents were super religious and thought costumes were, honestly, I don't know. They just thought it was wrong. We'd had to keep a cape and plastic fangs for him at Max's house where we all got ready. We each opted for something quick and easy. Greg was a vampire, Ella was a witch, Max put on a cowboy hat, and I dressed like a ghost. They weren't good costumes, but they were costumes. How'd you convince your parents to let you come out tonight anyways? He held up a plastic bag filled with religious pamphlets. I said I was called to spread the word. So what's the plan? We hit a few houses and try and get candy so we look legit, and then we go to the houses on my list. I answered, pulling out a list and a map where I'd marked everyone down. And you're just going to ask them about their murdered family member? What if there's kids? I plan on showing them this. I pulled out a piece of lined paper with a drawing of one of the creatures. They all stared at it. Don't spiders have like 8 legs? There's only 4. I rolled my eyes and put it back in my bag. I said spider why, they're not actual spiders. Okay, Picasso. Ella laughed as we headed off into the night. We got turned away from a few houses, but people were surprisingly generous most of the time. We got a couple glad to see teenagers doing something wholesome comments, and it didn't take us long to get into it. It was nice. Trick-or-treating with my friends brought back a lot of memories and good feelings. Every time we stopped to compare notes on our haul, it felt like we were kids again. It gave me just a glimmer of hope before we hit the first target house. We waited on the street for the big group of kids to get their candy and hustle on before stepping up to the plate and ringing the bell. Trick or treat. The door swung open and we all smiled like fools. The woman inside, a lady that looked to be in her 50s, gave us a confused smile back and grabbed her candy bowl. I held up my art the moment the peanut butter cups hit the pillowcase. Do you recognize this? I asked. She paused, looked over my shitty drawing, and then shook her head. No, I don't. But it's very nice. You kids have a good Halloween. I didn't even have time to react. The next group of kids were already pushing us out, and so we walked back to the street. Okay, that didn't work, I sighed, opening up a snack-sized bag of chips. Do we believe her? Ella asked, doing the same. We all started walking and eating, the salt cutting the handfuls of candy we'd already stuffed ourselves with. Yeah, I don't think she's seen them. She didn't even blink. So maybe you gotta go harder next time. If no one's seen those things, it won't mean a thing to them. Ask them about the deaths. So I did. The next house was polite as could be considering the question. The house after slammed the door in our faces. The house after that actually took their candy back before rattling the door on its hinges. It was going honestly pretty terrible. No pumpkins. Porch light is off. Bummer. It was getting late, and we'd agreed to go to Max's house for curfew to watch movies. I'd only marked off a plan for 10 houses, and we'd reached our limit. The last house was a dead end. Anyone have a pen? I asked suddenly, a last-ditch idea coming to mind. Greg dug through his pamphlet bag and gave me one, and I crouched on the sidewalk to write a quick note on the back of the drawing. I left my phone number and an explanation and slipped it through the rusty old mail slot on the door. It was old, loud, and nearly bit my fingers off trying to get the paper through. Once I saw it disappear, we started to leave. We got nearly a house away before a hoarse yell stopped us. Looking back, a woman that had to be at least in her 80s was waving at us from the place we'd just been. Get over here, she squawked, the paper clutched in her hand. We all froze, sharing nervous glances. I guess some part of me didn't really believe anyone would recognize it. If no one recognized it, then the issue would be moot. I could say I'd done what I could and just start therapy to deal with what I saw. Instead, we all made our way back, meeting the woman on her stoop. Get inside, it's cold out, she ordered, stepping aside and motioning us through. Shoes off. Sit down. What looked like no lights on from the outside was actually the thickest blackout curtains I'd ever seen. Every window we could see was completely covered and barred. When she shut the door, she locked it and braced it with a chair. Not that I think it really mattered. The thing looked like an industrial security door from the inside. What really stood out to me, though, and what I couldn't stop staring at, was her fireplace. It just didn't really exist anymore. She'd filled the bottom with cement, gated it, and wrapped the gate with barbed wire. "So, you've been awake on Christmas Eve, it seems. Must have been quite the fright." "When?" I was in shock. She sat comfortably on a recliner just across from us, a shotgun stuffed in what looked like a magazine holder. "Well, last year," I stuttered out. She just nodded, looking over the drawing carefully. "I had to know why they give us pills." "Pills? Goodness. That's ripe for trouble. Back in my day you got an infusion. Or Dad let you sneak some alcohol. Anything to hide it. I guess your parents bought into that never lie to your kids crap the magazines started shilling." She clucked her tongue, tucking the piece of paper into her pocket. "Look where it got them. Do they know?" I shook my head quickly. I didn't think they knew. "Humph. Well, you're lucky. There's not a lot of lucky ones that see the creatures and live to talk about it. Most anyone who does gets their death." "Up the chimney," I practically whispered, and her face softened. "Poor kid. You must live near that girl that died. There was just one last year, I believe." "I'm sorry, dear. That's just something no one should ever see." Beside me, Greg, Max, and Ella had all sunken into themselves. Ella looked like she might throw up at any second. "So it's real?" she asked, pulling off her fake nose. "They're real." The woman gave a solemn nod. She gave us a thin-lipped smile before getting up, returning moments later with a box of papers. "You probably already know this, but my name is Rosalie Walsh. Rosie for short. My family's lived here for generations now. My sister, God rest her soul, was the most recent member of my family to die in that awful way. She'd been on a new medication. Didn't realize it was basically amphetamines. By time she realized she wasn't getting to sleep, there just wasn't anything she could do about it. Told me as much in the letter she left. There's an empty grave in her name at the cemetery. There's a lot of empty graves. Empty urns. Lots of families in this town never get to bury their loved ones." She dug through the box and pulled out an album of family photos. There were several photos with red dots next to them, and I realized that they were people that had been taken. "So you never find the bodies?" "No, and having seen it happen myself, I guess it's as much a blessing as a curse." "Where do the bodies go?" asked Max, twisting and turning the book, flipping pages and frowning at the growing list of red dots. "Don't know. Lots of rumor and conjecture on that one. Some folks say they're eaten. Bathrooms down the hall, and to the left, kid dash," she pointed at Greg, who was green by then, and he gratefully ran off through the house. "Like I said, some folks think they get eaten. Other folks think they're taken somewhere. Some of the more airy-fairy fools think that they're taken to some sort of fantasy land. The real Santa's workshop. That they're all up there living in bliss. I think if they'd seen what a person looks like after going up a chimney, there wouldn't be any magical thinking left." "So what are they?" She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Look through here," she ordered, passing me the box and kicking the recline function into gear. "I'm no expert. Not a history major or archaeology anything. I went to school for accounting. But I was your age when I took an interest in it. Woke up at just the wrong time. Guess my father didn't put enough whiskey in my drink that night. Instead of waking up Christmas morning, I woke up close to midnight. Heard the hooves. Could have sworn I heard the bells. The sound of the ornaments clinking on the tree. Doesn't matter how old you are, if you think you hear Santa on Christmas Eve, you get up to look. So I did. Crept out real slow, real quiet. I got just to the edge of the living room when I saw them, those nasty things. Disgusting creatures. They had my little brother, and she paused, taking in a sharp breath and resting her fingers on her face, a little shake to her voice. God, 60 years and it still gets me. They put him up the chimney. A couple go up the top, hold on to the head. The other shoves from the bottom. He was awake. He screamed, Lord, he screamed. Finally she just waved her hand a little, as if trying to wave away the memory, her eyes wet. Couldn't do nothing. I was too scared. I went back to bed, hid under the covers. But it was fine. Once they get awaker, they leave. They got what they came for. I didn't sleep for years. Still don't, not really. While she talked, Ella and I rifled through the box. There were dates, times, letters written from strangers describing what they'd seen. There were drawings too, much better than mine, but all displaying something similar. The collection went back through the years. What's this? I asked, holding up a photo of a roof. It looked like someone made a mistake taking the photo. All you saw was a snowy roof and these strange white smears. That's how they show up on camera. The only reason we know what they look like is eyewitness accounts. Even video doesn't capture them. They end up looking like glitter. She heaved a big sigh, eyes on the ceiling, face looking suddenly more gaunt and drawn than when we'd first seen her. They always come in threes. Never seen a house without three. They always come down the chimney. They take the first waker they come across. One per house. Only one per house. Then they leave on to the next, and so on, until every house has been hit. Can't we just, close up the chimneys? Max asked, pointing to the cement job she'd done on hers. Won't that just, solve it all? What about apartments? You ever seen an apartment in this town, kid? She asked, eyeing him carefully. We all paused, taking a moment to think. There's an ordinance here. This town has strict rules about what can be built. No apartments. Most you'll see is a duplex. All with fireplaces. She was right. There wasn't an apartment anywhere within the boundaries of the town. Even double-story houses were weird. If someone built something other than the usual flat single-story home, you could guarantee the neighbors would gossip. It was too flashy. Every family handles it differently. My parents told us after my brother went missing. Felt it wasn't fair we didn't know after that. Some folks don't tell their kids until it's time for them to move out. Figure they want to preserve what innocence they have. Not everyone handles it well when they find out. My eldest son John had a fire in his belly and didn't believe us. Said we just wanted to keep him home. That was a hard Christmas. My husband and I had the kids help clean the roof after. Did it hurt them? Sure did. But they believed after that. They're all still alive. At some point Greg had returned, and then left again at mention of cleaning the roof. The rest of us sat there in numb silence as Rosie talked. Finally the memories seemed to take their toll on her. Time's up, kids. Halloween is over, she announced, straightening up and taking the box back. The best I can suggest is that you take those pills. Take enough. Sleep through. Try and pretend you don't know what you know. She cleared her throat and held out her hand. Reese's. We all stood there like deer in headlights before someone snapped out of it and dropped a couple candies in her hand. Honestly, it seemed fair. We all paid our toll, and she walked us to the door. Here, one last treat. I don't know what they are, but I know they aren't anything holy. She dropped a thick notebook in my pillowcase and patted me on the shoulder, then gently shoved us out the door and slammed it behind us. We barely made curfew that night. Not that it mattered. Max's parents were pretty lax, and his eldest sister was still out partying by time we got to his house. Someone voted to order a pizza. Someone else voted to put a movie on. We ended up settling on watching The Little Mermaid. Laugh all you want, but it was the only thing we could agree on. Not one of us wanted to watch anything scary after hearing what Rosie had to say. After that, we didn't talk for a couple weeks. It was like we all silently but mutually agreed that we couldn't be around each other after we'd learned the truth about Christmas in our little town. I couldn't even open the book that Rosie gave me. I hid it under my bed, gave my candy to Sarah, and stopped all my research. I didn't want to even think about it, and for the first time since Christmas last year, I managed to sleep. Until a couple weeks ago. That was when Ella called me up. Someone new had moved into town at the start of December, a family with 3 kids. They live a couple doors down from her, and she'd been watching them like a hawk. She wanted to see what the neighbors would do. Normally the welcoming committee came by with some sort of shitty gift basket and cheap plastic key to the city. But there was no one. Not even the nosy old lady that lived across the street dropped by. I think they're sacrificing them, she'd said once we had all gotten together on those ice-cold stumps behind the school for a smoke. That's why the cops don't come. That's why the newspapers don't run any stories. That's why no one fucking talks about our town after they leave. If everyone that's lived here all their lives knows you have to stay asleep, there's no one to take. So they need new people to come. They need people for the spiders to take. So we've been prepping, researching, making plans. Maybe we're crazy, but something about watching the entire town just hang these people out to dry, knowing what's going to come, makes us all sick. We're all graduating soon, and we all plan on leaving. But we're not letting this happen again this year without a fight. Someone has to do something. There has to be some revenge for people like Rosie for Maggie. It's Christmas Eve. Everything is in place, and now we're just waiting. Everyone's at home. My parents are making cookies. Ella's helping her family make a gingerbread house. We're all doing something. Just waiting for everyone to go to sleep. Wish us luck. In August 1977, emergency personnel were dispatched to an undisclosed psychiatric institution for intellectually and developmentally impaired adults. Upon arrival, they discovered 4 deceased staff who appeared to have been picked into pieces. Small amounts of flesh, muscle, and parts such as eyelids, eyes, ears, fingers, and toes had been pinched away. At autopsy, it was determined that approximately 20% to 35% of the victim's body mass had been removed in this manner. Despite an extensive search, the missing body mass was never located. Residents of the institution appeared unaware of the deaths, only providing statements regarding Larry's guardian angel. Upon request, they led investigators to a 21-year-old man who introduced himself as Larry. Larry said he had no idea what happened at the institution except lots of fixing. Investigators soon uncovered evidence of systemic abuse against residents past and present, including multiple fatalities. The dead staff members appeared to be the worst perpetrators. Under the circumstances, the facility was shuttered. The residents were transferred out to other facilities. The murders remain unsolved. Approximately 6 months later, a similar incident occurred at the facility where Larry now lived. In fact, similar incidents have occurred at every facility in which has Larry lived for the past 48 years. Each facility experienced at least 2 freak accidents of staff, who then had a substantial portion of body mass picked away. Between 1977 and 2025, over 150 such deaths occurred in facilities where Larry lived. In January 2025, Larry came to the attention of V-Class Agent Gabriella W. Shortly thereafter, he was transferred to the custody of the Agency of Helping Hands. Larry is a 69-year-old Caucasian male, although he appears to be 20 to 25 years of age. He is 5 feet 3 inches tall with light blonde hair and brown eyes. His physical appearance is consistent with trisomy 21. Larry has mild to moderate intellectual disability. He possesses a sophisticated vocabulary and excellent manual dexterity. He has demonstrated the ability to carry out simple to moderately complex tasks. Larry carries a blue plastic toolbox everywhere. When he opens the toolbox, a variety of items can be seen, including needles, thread, hand tools, and large white feathers, as well as various body parts such as hair, eyes, ears, fingernails, and patches of skin. It should be noted that each item appears infused with a faint glow. When anyone else opens the toolbox, it appears empty. No one except Larry can remove anything from the toolbox. Larry can spontaneously heal physical injuries by using body parts within his toolbox as patches. Based on his interview, he also appears capable of reversing death by virtue of utilizing human biological matter. When asked who taught him this skill, he replied, "Nameless." Containment of the entity Nameless is now a high priority. Additionally, Larry senses psychological, mental, and emotional distress via a synesthesia response. He perceives negative emotional states as cracks, lines, crevices, and fissures in the skin of the person he is viewing. As Larry describes it, he can see when people are falling apart. Per evaluations, his synesthesia response does not differentiate between temporary or chronic distress. Larry can fix these afflictions on a temporary or semi-permanent basis by filling them. Larry uses various materials, but the best results come from use of his own hair. He told evaluators that, "My hair is the best tool I've got." Larry has been observed to braid, knot, and twist locks of his own hair before placing them inside a fissure. While no one but Larry can see these fissures, witnesses agree that the pieces of hair he uses disappear from view once he releases them. Larry's abilities bear similarities to inmate 24, Ward 1, Mrs. Stitcher. Unlike Mrs. Stitcher, he only applies his abilities to people he believes are, in his words, broken. Even then, he only provides aid to a specific subset of broken individuals. He will and has victimized so-called broken people that he views as victimizers in order to benefit broken people who are victims. While Larry's internal value system may render him functionally useless to many agency staff, he may be a valuable asset to the mental and emotional well-being of his fellow inmates. It should be noted that immediately following this interview, the inmate inflicted substantial injury upon Rochelle B. That's me. A full account of the circumstances of her injury follow the interview. Interview subject: the patron saint of broken things. Classification string: cooperative / indestructible / under investigation **** / constant / low / Danos. Interviewer: Rochelle B. and Christoph W. Interview date: January 22nd, 2025. People told my mom to get rid of me because I was born broken. That always hurt my feelings. My mom would tell me, "You're not broken, Larry. Not a bit. You're a fixer. I was broken before you were born, but you fixed me. Don't listen to a word they say." But it was hard not to listen when they said things like broken mother, broken son, and he ruined your life, and you're lucky we don't put you out in the street, and why don't you put him in an institution? That's where people like him belong. They always talked like I wasn't there. Maybe they didn't notice me, or maybe they just thought I was too stupid to understand. I wasn't too stupid, but I was broken. I was broken and slow and different. I couldn't go to school. Even when I got old, I couldn't read or write well. And no matter what she said, Mom was broken too. Her skin was always covered in big spidery lines like her old porcelain doll. When she was really sad or mad, the lines cracked open and bled shadows. No one else saw it. It took me a long time to figure that out, because I'm not smart. The lines were real. They were a sickness. But it was a sickness only I could see. Sometimes the cracks went away when I was a good boy who did my chores and gave her big hugs and fixed things for her. But only sometimes. I was good at fixing things. I had lots of tools, plus needles and thread and buttons and fishing line and rope. Mom got me a toolbox to put it all in. I took it everywhere so I could fix whatever needed fixing. Mom always smiled when I fixed stuff. You're a fixer, Larry. The best fixer, just like I always say. But she was wrong. I found lots of things I couldn't fix, like the bumblebee with no wings. I couldn't fix that bumblebee, so I put him in my grandma's old fishbowl and fed him sugar water and let him crawl all over my arms. I pretended he could talk in a teeny fuzzy voice. That's silly. But when Mom saw me being silly with my bumblebee, all the cracks in her skin got so small they almost disappeared. Nobody but Mom liked me when I was silly. My cousin Rob hated me when I was silly. Actually, he hated me all the time. He punched me once, right in the face, and broke my front tooth. It fell out and landed on my bed. It hurt so bad, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how stupid I looked. How my smile looked broken. How I looked broken. My bumblebee crawled out of his fish bowl and onto my hand, like he was telling me everything would be okay. I could even hear him say it in his teeny, fuzzy voice. Everything will be okay. Then he crawled onto my broken tooth. I picked it up so carefully so he wouldn't fall off, cupping him in my hand just like this. When I opened my hand again, my broken tooth was gone, and my bumblebee had wings. That's the first time a piece of me fixed a broken thing. I let my bumblebee fly out the window. He looked so happy. He remembered me. He even came back to visit before I got kicked out of that house. I miss him. We got kicked out because Grandma told Mom to send me to an institution. For everyone's safety, she said, even though I never hit anyone or get out. We got out. Mom got so sad. The cracks in her skin got so big. I got sad too. Our new house was scary. The neighbors were mean, and there was a horrible scratch under the floor at night. Sometimes I thought I heard a teeny fuzzy voice asking for help. But that wasn't real. Some of the things Mom said things weren't real either. Once she said, I used to sing to you when we were both stars. We were so far away from each other in the dark, but you could still hear me. I used to dream of the day I'd be close enough to sing in your ear. Now that day is here, but I've forgotten how to sing. She said things that were real, though. Mean things like you ruined my life, and you really are broken, Larry. You broke me too. We're both broken now. That made me cry. Then she'd say, don't cry, Larry. I didn't mean it. I love you. You're a fixer. Don't listen to a word I say. But it was hard not to listen. It was hard not to see the lines in her skin turning into bigger, broken cracks. I thought about my bumblebee a lot. How one little tooth made his wings grow back. I wondered if knocking all my teeth out would fix my mom. Only I was too scared to knock my teeth out. The only times her cracks got small was when we went to church. I loved church. I loved Jesus. The priest said Jesus was the great healer. Mom said healer is a fancy word for fixer. Just like you, Larry. You're a fixer too. At church I would look up and see the gash in Jesus' side. I wanted to fix it for him, like I fixed my bumblebee. Not because Jesus needed my help, but because I wanted to do something for him. Only I would never be good enough to do anything for Jesus. I couldn't even do anything for Mom. Except for at church, she got sadder and meaner. Her broken lines split open and bled darkness. I tried to fix her with pieces of me. I was too scared to knock out my teeth, so I used my hair instead. I used to put it on her cracked skin when I hugged her. Sometimes it made the cracks better for a little bit. I tried using my tools too. I tapped her gently with the hammer and put the wrench on her fingers sometimes. I told her I was fixing her. That made her laugh and say. When she laughed, the lines in her skin shrank again. But only for a little bit. So I started hugging her and wrapping her in blankets and making her tea and petting her hair like she pet mine when I was sick. It worked sometimes, but only for a little bit. No matter how many pieces of me I used, no matter how many things I fixed with the tools in my toolbox, no matter how many times I pet her hair, or wrapped her in blankets, or made her tea or hugged her, she got more and more broken. That meant I wasn't a fixer anymore. I was just broken. A broken fixer. That made her cry. "It's not your fault, Larry," she said. "If it wasn't for you, I'd have fallen apart forever ago. You're a good fixer. The best fixer who ever lived. I'm just too broken to be fixed anymore." That night she fell apart all the way. She went to a funeral home, and I went to an institution with nothing but my toolbox. On my very first day, they took it away. That made me cry. They hit me for crying. That made me cry more. No one had ever hit me except my cousins, and not like this. These people hit me so hard I couldn't open my eye. They took me to a tiny room with bars on the window and locked me in. I cried and prayed to God for help. He didn't help me. Not that day or the next day. Not when I got hit again, or when they took my food away for crying too much. Not when the other patients pushed me, or when one single patient screamed so loud for so long the workers locked us all in our rooms without supper. I still prayed. One night I prayed until moon got so high it spilled light through the bars on my window. That's when I heard a funny sound. A noisy scritch-scratch from the vent like a rat. I wasn't scared of rats. I used to feed them in my old house. They were my friends. I wanted more rat friends. So I got out of bed and crawled to the vent. Inside I saw a face. It had no eyes, just big empty wet sockets. Its skin was all cracked apart, just like my mom's. It started whispering without words, just babbling like it forgot how to talk. That made me think of what my mom said about forgetting how to sing. Then it opened its mouth, and I saw it had no tongue. That reminded me of my mom, too. That's why I didn't move when it stretched its long, skinny fingers through the grate, or when it wrapped those fingers in my hair just like my mom used to. It tightened its hand like a trap and yanked my hair out and shoved it into its mouth. Then it whipped around and crawled away. I crawled back into bed, crying and missing my mom. I cried so loud a worker came by and told me to shut up. I dreamed about my bumblebee. He flew out my window. I tried to follow, but I was too big to squeeze through the bars. When I gave up and turned around, I saw the scary face in the vent. I woke up crying. The worker told me to shut up again. That was Mr. Carl. He was mean, but not the meanest. The meanest was Mr. Paul. All the residents were scared of Mr. Paul. Some of the workers were nice, like Mrs. Mary. She brought me snacks sometimes, and gave me medicine cream when Mr. Paul hit me so hard I bled. That happened a lot because Mr. Paul liked to hit us. Even though it was hard, I got used to living at the institution, and I got to know all the other patients. I don't even know why some of them were there. Lots were normal and smart, not slow and strange like me. Like Roger. Roger was handsome and funny, but they put him here for living with a man. Carrie was a genius and used to be a nurse, but they put her there just having a baby without being married. My mom had me without being married. And then there was Franklin. He sometimes talked to people who weren't there, but he talked to people who were there, too, and he was a good teacher. He taught me how to read. "Why are you even here, Franklin?" I asked. "Because people want to forget me," he said. "They want to forget you, too. This is where they send people they want to forget." That made me cry. I don't want to be forgotten. No one should get forgotten just for being different. And we were all different there. Some of the patients were so different they couldn't talk or see or even move. Some of them didn't even know their names. I don't think the workers did either. But most of the patients were in between people like Franklin and people who didn't know their names. Some used to have regular lives before they came to the institute. But lots and lots of them had been in the institution their whole lives. Some even got sent here when they were born. They never got held by their moms or made friends with bumblebees or learned to fix broken things. The only thing they had in common was they were all broken. They were full of lines and cracks that bled darkness. Some had cracks even bigger than my mom's, and no one was even trying to fix them. So even though I didn't want to be there, even though I was scared, even though Mr. Paul hit me, and even though I didn't always get to eat, and even though the pills the workers gave me made me sick, I decided it was time to be a fixer again. I didn't have my toolbox anymore, so I used hugs and hair pets. Sometimes I covered the residents up with the blankets in the day room and told them stories. I couldn't fix everyone, but I fixed a lot of people a little, and a few people a lot. Their names were William and Nedra and Edith and Eleanor. Eleanor was my favorite. She was going to have a baby right there in the institution. I thought that was wonderful, but the staff told her she was dirty and disgusting. It always made the lines in her skin get so big and dark. I told her, "Don't listen to a word they say. Your baby is wonderful, and so are you." "You're a good boy, Larry," she said. "I hope my baby is like you." No one had ever said anything so nice. It made me so warm and happy I couldn't even sleep. I was still awake that night, smiling, when I heard a scratch in the vent. I sat up. It was the monster with his cracked skin and empty wet eye sockets and no tongue. Except he had a tongue now. Look, he stuck his tongue out. It was a funny tongue, long and flat, and the exact same gold color as my hair. "You did this. My tongue was broken, but you fixed it. I need more fixing." "No, I don't want to help you. You hurt me when I helped you before." He wrapped his long, rotten fingers around the grate. "But I'm broken. I need fixing. You're the fixer. Help me. If you help me, I'll make you strong. Strong enough to break out of here and break everyone who stands in your way. But only if you fix me." I wanted to. I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to be remembered, not forgotten. I wanted to go back home with Mom. But Mom was gone. I didn't have a home anymore. I just had the institution, and William and Nedra and Edith and Eleanor. Besides, I wasn't a breaker. I was a fixer. And lots of people in that institution needed fixing. "No," I said. The monster screamed terrible names and shook the grate. He made so much noise that Mr. Paul came and hit me until I couldn't even lay on my back. When he was gone, I cried and wished for Miss Mary to come help me. But I knew she wouldn't. Miss Mary didn't work nights. The grate scraped open, and the monster crawled out. I got scared, even more scared than of Mr. Paul. He was so much bigger than I thought. And he had wings. Big, broken, dirty wings that dragged on the ground. But instead of hurting me, he pet my hair like I used to pet Mom's. Up close, his skin was cracked all over and covered in sores. Then he pulled out a broken feather and put it on my back, right on top of the place Mr. Paul hit hardest. That was his favorite place to hit. Then the monster patted my head and crawled back into the vent. I reached around to get that dirty old feather off my back, but it was gone. The next time Mr. Paul hit me in that same spot, it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt the next time he hit me there, either. It hurt when he hit me in other places, but not there. And that was good, because that's the place he hit most. That scary old monster had helped me. You're always supposed to thank people who help you. So I waited for his scratch to come back, only it never did. I figured the monster was ashamed of yelling. Mom always felt ashamed after she yelled at me. After 3 nights with no scratch, I crawled to the grate and tapped it. Something banged deep down in the vent. A minute later, his scary smile blinked on. "Do you still need fixing?" I asked. He nodded. "Okay." I scratched at my hair with both hands. I didn't pull it because pulling hurt and I was tired of hurting, until lots came falling out. Then I gathered it up and rolled it into a little fuzzy rope and poked it through the grate. The monster took it and put it inside one of his empty eye sockets. That made me feel pretty sick. It hurts when a tiny little eyelash gets into my eye. Seeing him put a whole bunch of hair inside made me shivery. But he didn't shiver. He just smiled bigger. Then he turned around and crawled away. I didn't see him again till after my next beating. They beat me for helping Eleanor. They were trying to take her away for shocks, and she was scared, so I tried to protect her. They beat me and took her anyway. They hurt me so bad I was scared I'd never be able to move again. When the moon rose, I heard a scratch the grate. Next thing I knew, the monster was leaning over me. His skin was still cracked and full of sores, and his broken wings were filthy. But he had a shiny new eye the color of my hair. He pulled a feather from his wing and put it on my biggest bruise. "Why can't you do that before they hit me?" I asked. "Because I can't fix what isn't broken." "You can talk." "I can now." "Why couldn't you talk before?" "I forgot how until I met you." This made me frown. "Are you an angel?" "No. I'm just broken." "What's your name?" "I don't remember." "How?" "I've been here too long. When you're in here, everyone forgets you until you forget yourself, too." He pulled out more feathers and put them on the sorest spots. "This won't last long because the feathers are broken, but it'll help for a little while." "Thank you," I said. After that, the monster came every night. Only I stopped calling him a monster. People used to call me a monster. It's not nice. Since he didn't have a name and wouldn't let me pick one for him, I called him Nameless. The 10th time he visited, I scratched out more of my hair until I had enough to make a little twist. "For your other eye," I said. He smiled and stuck it right in. Seeing that whole big tuft in his socket made me sick, but it was still a nice thing to do. And I promised to always nice to Nameless because he was broken and I was a fixer. He made it hard to be nice though. He was really mean sometimes, and it was easy to make him mad. He never even told me why he was mad. That reminded me of my mom. And after those mean things, he'd say exactly what my mom said. I'm sorry. Don't listen to a word I say. You're not the broken one, I am. But less broken now, thanks to you. One night I told him about my toolbox. How it was a present from my mom, and how I used it to fix things everywhere I went. Where is it? They stole it when I got here. They probably threw it away. That made Nameless cry. He usually got mad at me after he cried, but not that time. He always patched me up with his feathers. The feather patches only lasted a few days, just like he said, so I needed lots of them. And he needed lots of my hair. He used it to fix the cracks in his skin and the sores. He couldn't fix his wings, though. Hair won't work for wings, he said. What will? Scary things. I liked seeing Nameless fixed, so I started pulling out my hair even though it hurt. I gave him hair until I was almost bald. Some patients made fun of me, but most didn't. Soon I didn't have much hair left. That made me sad. Not about having no hair, but about not having enough to fix everyone. I wanted enough to fix everybody, especially Eleanor. The cracks in her skin were so big I could see through her. I got so sad that Nameless noticed. What's wrong? I told him about Eleanor. I don't have enough to fix her. I don't have enough to fix anyone but you, and I love you, Nameless, but you're not the only one here who needs fixing. That's it? Why didn't you say so? I can help with that. Before I could say another word, he squirmed into the vent. He came back a little while later with a handful of hair. Where did you get this? I asked. Does it matter? Make a clump and tie it with one of your own hairs, he said. That's important. Just one strand, all the way around. How do you know? Because I knew someone like you once. I don't remember her name, but I remember what she did. And that's what she did. So I tied the hair together like a fishing lure and used one of my hairs just like Nameless said. Next time I saw Eleanor in the day room, I pretended to pet her. Just like a cat, Eleanor, because you're so pretty and nice just like my mom's cat. And dropped it inside the biggest, darkest crack. It turned to liquid gold before it vanished. The crack got bigger for a second, but then it shrank down. Larry, that was even better than a hug, Eleanor said. Thank you. After that, Nameless brought me more hair. So much. More than I could use. And I finally figured out where he was getting it, because all the staff members were going bald. How do you do that? I asked. It hurt so bad when you pulled mine out. That's because I forgot how to be gentle, he answered. You made me remember. Don't they see you? No. How? Because they forgot I exist. This made no sense, but a lot of things Nameless said made no sense. Then again, he was locked up in the institute too. Most of us patients said things that made no sense. Why would he be any different? Besides, I had bigger problems. The staff decided their hair loss was because of fungus, and they blamed me because I lost my hair first. I got scrubbed with burning water and special soap that made my skin bleed. They called me filthy and disgusting, and shaved all my hair off. Hair was the only tool I had. Without it, I couldn't fix anyone, not even Nameless. I was so scared Nameless would be mad, but all he said was, "That's all right. Who is your favorite patient here?" You. I don't count. Who else? Eleanor. Come with me. He made me crawl into the vent with him. It was tiny. I don't even know how Nameless fit. No wonder all his feathers were broken. The vent was crushing them. We crawled for a long time. Finally, he stopped at a grate. You first, he said. I'll just scare her. Tell her you need help. This time I was the one scratching. I pushed the grate open and crawled out. In the bed was Eleanor. Larry, she said. What's wrong? I got so flustered I didn't even know what to say. Nameless came to my rescue. Eleanor's eyes got so big when she saw him. So big and scared. The boy is special, said Nameless. You know this, don't you? The embodiment of peace be with you? I see wings, Larry, Eleanor said to me. Does he have wings? Yes. She looked at me, then back at him. She was breathing hard. I was scared she'd scream. But she didn't. It took a long time, but Nameless talked her into sitting on his lap like a little girl. I don't know how he did it. Maybe because he didn't look so scary anymore now that he had eyes. Then he brushed her hair with his fingers. He was gentle. He was so gentle she fell asleep. When he was done, he put her back in bed and covered her. Then he showed me his hands. Pieces of Eleanor's hair were laced across his fingers. It looked so pretty, like a net. Bless them, he said. How? However you want. So I blessed the strands how I wanted, and placed them right over Eleanor's heart. They shimmered like they were made of stars. Then they melted into her, filling in the breaks in her skin like molten silver. Every night after that, Nameless took me through the vents to the cell of a different patient. Most weren't scared, especially once they saw Nameless. They all thought he was an angel, even Franklin and Roger. Nameless held them like children and ran his hands through their hair, so gently they fell asleep. At the end, he always had a lacy net of hair around his hands. I blessed it, then used half of it for Nameless because he needed so much fixing. I used the rest to help fix the patients. And it worked. The breaks in their skin got so small you couldn't even see them, and they mostly stayed gone. Sometimes the breaks came back, especially after a patient got hurt by Mr. Paul, or when they had to go see the doctors for shocks. But we always fixed them again. We fixed some of them so good they got to go home. Franklin and Nedra were two who got to go home again. That's what Mrs. Mary said. They got discharged to their families. Isn't that wonderful? It was wonderful, even though I missed them. The only person we couldn't fix was Eleanor. The breaks in her skin never went away no matter how much Nameless brushed her hair. He started calling her breaks crevasses. She turned into his favorite, just like she was mine. She reminded me of Mom. I don't know who she reminded Nameless of, but I think he loved her more than I did. We worked so hard to fill her in, but no matter what, she just kept breaking apart. One night, she wasn't in her cell anymore. Nameless was angry. I was just sad. But Nameless made my life hard when he was angry. I didn't want him to be angry anymore. So I asked Mrs. Mary. Her family came for her, she said. Her and her new baby. This made me happy, even though it made me sad. I loved Eleanor so much. But Nameless didn't believe it. That's a lie. She's here. We're going to find her. That night, we searched all the cells. Then we searched the offices. We searched the basement last. And that's where she was. In the basement on a table under a sheet, and all black and blue and dead. And she wasn't the only one. I saw Nedra and Franklin too, and one of the patients who couldn't talk, and two who had never lived anywhere but the institution their whole lives. They were all black and blue, with bloody faces. Franklin's face was so bloody I only recognized him because of his hair. That's when I knew no one ever went home. I was so stupid to believe that. Who would take us home? They sent us to the institution to forget us. No one ever came back for people they wanted to forget. Nameless picked up Eleanor and rocked her. For once, he was sad and I was angry. I was so angry that I didn't want to fix anything. For the first time ever, I wanted to break everything. I tried, but I just got in trouble. The biggest trouble. Mr. Paul and Mr. Carl hurt me until I couldn't move. Until I felt dead. I wasn't scared though. Except for the hurting, it wasn't so bad. The moon coming through the bars was so beautiful. The bars didn't even look like bars. They looked like columns, wide and beautiful, in front of the door to heaven. The stars in the sky were singing, so soft and quiet, in teeny fuzzy voices. They made me smile. Then something screamed so loud the stars stopped. Nameless. Nameless, trying to wake me up. But I was too hurt to wake up. And I was too tired. That didn't stop Nameless. He brought all kinds of things to me. He brought hair. So much hair. But so much more. He brought bloody teeth and eyes and pieces of meat. Only meat isn't supposed to have hair, and eyes aren't supposed to be outside your head. Eyes have tails, did you know that? I didn't know. That's creepy. I wonder if that's why eyelashes hurt when they get in your eyes, because they poke the tails. Nameless tried to put the hair and the skin and the taily eyes on me just like I used to put hair on him, but it didn't work. I loved him so much for trying though. Looking at him made me feel happy, like when I looked at my mom. But keeping my eyes open hurt, so I closed them. Nameless screamed again. I was scared someone would come running and hurt me more, but no one did. I wondered if that was because I was dreaming, or maybe I was already dead. I didn't want to be dead because I was hurting, but I couldn't be dead if I was hurting. Heaven couldn't hurt, and Nameless wouldn't be crying if we were in heaven. No one is sad in heaven, especially not angels. Nameless went away again. I know because it got quiet. The stars started to sing again in their teeny fuzzy voices. I smiled and flew away. I flew through the bars on the window that weren't bars anymore, but shining columns leading to heaven, and up into the sky with all the stars. They were singing in my mama's voice. I reached for the closest one, and then I slammed backwards, screaming. I was back in bed, back in my cell, and Nameless was leaning over me with my old toolbox. And he had the big old needle I kept in there. He was sewing me shut with my old fishing line. Somehow, he fixed me right up. I don't know how. I guess it was a miracle. Angels do miracles. No matter what he says, Nameless is an angel. When I sat up, all fixed and happy, Nameless hugged me. When we were done hugging, I used the rest of those pieces, including the eyes with the tails and the skin with all that hair on it and the ears and fingers, to fix Nameless up for good. That's what his wings needed, body parts and blood and skin and eyes. When I was done fixing him, he wasn't skinny anymore. No bones sticking out of his skin, no bruises, and his wings were glory. That's the only word I could think of, glory. The toolbox was empty, so Nameless went to fill it up again. He brought back a big old set of keys with the full toolbox. Together we unlocked all the doors and let all the patients into the day room. We fixed them all up. Nameless had to refill the toolbox at least 10 times. When everyone was fixed, we went down to the basement. To Eleanor. Together we fixed her. It took everything in my toolbox, and Nameless still had to cut himself and put his own blood in her mouth. But in the end, she woke up too. We did the same for Franklin and Nedra, and the patient who couldn't talk, and the patients who had never lived anywhere but the institution. Everyone was so happy to see them back. Then Nameless pulled his feathers, his glorious new whole feathers, and gave one to each and every patient. And I knew, because the feathers were finally clean and whole, because Nameless wasn't broken anymore, that those feathers would protect them forever. When day shift came in, I thought they'd be happy to see us all fixed. Mrs. Mary especially, but they were all just scared. Mrs. Mary was the most scared. That made me sad. The police came because of the dead bodies. None of us got in trouble. They just moved us all to a different institution. It wasn't much better there. They took my toolbox, but Nameless came with me, and he got it back the very first night. We got to fixing straight away. I can fix you too if you want. You can say no. Not everyone has to be fixed. It's okay to be broken. You're so broken you don't even have cracks anymore. You covered them up with scales. I can see the scales in you, just like I can see the breaks in other people. They're old and really, really hard. They're growing everywhere. They're covering your eyes and your helping hands and your heart. They need to come off. They need to fall away. Let me have them. They'll fix so many broken things. It won't even hurt when they come off. I promise. He lied. It hurt. Like someone tore off the biggest, heaviest, deepest full-body callus that had ever been. Only they ripped it off the inside instead of the outside. And it's like the callus was hiding a massive abscess that exploded. Only instead of infection, the abscess was filled with emotion. And that was way worse. Through the pain haze, I saw Larry pouring handfuls of old, tarnished scales into his toolbox. They cascaded over chunks of flesh, fingers, ears, and sure enough, eyes curled atop their coiled optic nerves. They pulled me from the interview room, asking what was wrong. To my shock, I answered, "Nothing's wrong, everything's actually right, but it's horrible and I hate it." And it was true. Despite the crippling raw agony firing across every internal surface, I felt free and right. I wish I could explain it properly, but there's really no way to explain that the world has returned to a state of rightness you have forgotten, or perhaps never even known, because of the invisible wildfire scorching both your physical and metaphysical insides to cinders. Anyway, the events that followed are too painful to relate due to being exquisitely embarrassing. But within about 3 minutes I discovered that a side effect of this internal defense-destroying firestorm was an inability to lie. If someone asked a question, I not only answered honestly, but spilled out any related tangents, all of which were brutally honest and kind of shocking, even to myself. They eventually took me to medical, who immediately threw up their hands and sent me over to research and development. Bless Christoph, he went with me. It wasn't terrible. They monitored me and ran a few tests. Their biggest concern seemed to be whether my own abilities were intact, which they were. If anything, my ability to compel speech was stronger than ever. Once they established that, they basically ignored me. Once it became clear that I was not going to die, Christoph instigated a game of truth or dare. Only it was really just truth or truth, because all the dares consisted of, "I dare you to answer this question truthfully." And he would not stop. I have to admit, being compelled to speak the whole truth is the most mortifying thing I've ever experienced. I'm starting to hate myself on the other inmates' behalf. R&D released me once the pain subsided. Even then, I still could not lie. I couldn't even withhold information, especially if someone asked me a direct question. Christoph kept asking direct questions all the way back to quarters. At my door, then asked, "Are you very sure you want to be all alone right now?" Unfortunately, the answer was no, but I shut my door before I had to endure his response. That turned out to be a mistake, because the second I turned around, the Harlequin crawled out from under my bed yet again. I recoiled. He looked less human than I've ever seen him. Not only monstrous, but otherworldly. Like something from another plane entirely, wearing a poorly fitted skin suit. "I know what mind you're in," he said. "It's the mind you've always been in. You just covered it up with all the other minds. You want to be a helping hand. But not to me. I know that now. Not unless I make you. I will find a way to make you." And with that, he spidered back under the bed and vanished. I haven't seen him since. I wish he'd come back to explain himself, because now that the side effects from the Larry interview have died down, I feel normal and just as confused as ever. Don't get me wrong, I'm really scared. I'm terrified of whatever he's going to do to make me help. But I also kind of miss getting along with him. I guess I've been here too long.